The vision of Yeshayahu. Isaiah, usually considered the greatest of the prophets, differed from his predecessors in being an aristocrat and a city dweller, which kind of breaks up the whole, actually it sticks to the not a pagan, not a heathen title, but what about the rest of them, So you really can't use pagan and heathen as anything but referring to material culture, if you're going to be honest, really. During his long prophetic career in Jerusalem, extending from 740 to 701 BCE, he exercised much influence upon political affairs, particularly during the critical time of the Assyrian invasion. A wise statesman, he had opposed the policy of alliance with Egypt against Assyria, perceiving the Egyptian day was over, and had counseled the maintenance of friendly relations with Nineveh, even at the cost of tribute. But when war came, in spite of his efforts, he hearkened the spirit of King Hezekiah to fight to the death. The fortunate outcome of that event increased his influence, which continued until the I'll say polytheism group under Manasseh came into power, when, according to tradition, Yeshayahu suffered martyrdom through being sawn asunder. In spite of his aristocratic birth and breeding, Yeshayahu sympathized with the proletarian aspirations of the prophetic school, but deeming the complete moral regeneration of the people impossible, he placed his hope in the survival of a saving remnant and the eventual appearance of some mighty leader strong enough to add established justice throughout the land. From him stemmed the messianic ideal that was to acquire ever-increasing weight throughout the centuries of defeat that were to follow. And in large numbers, he did succeed in creating the very remnant that he sought, so that the prophetic spirit was enabled to survive the 50 years of persecution under Manasseh and emerge temporally triumphant in the reign of Yeshua, or Yesia. I don't remember how it goes, but there's no J. Owing to the reputation and the variety of his poetic gifts, which brought to an immense command of technical resources, a wide range of emotional experience, many latter poems came to be ascribed to him, chief among them the separate exilic collection from chapters 40 to 66, entitled in this text, The Rhapsody of the Unknown Prophet. And this is one of the books that I've copied by hand. The vision of Isaiah, in Aramea, the son of Amoz, which he saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem in the days of Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, kings of Yehuda. Call of the prophet. In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw, is it Azia? That makes sense, Azia or Azia. Or I saw also God as a noun and verb sitting upon a throne, high and lifted up, and his train filled the temple. Perhaps saw for God, because some of the language is relatively choppy in English terms, but God showed him a vision, maybe. High and lifted up as train filled the temple. Above it stood the seraphim. Each one had 6 wings. With twain he covered his face, and with twain he covered his feet, and with twain he did fly. And one cried unto another, and said, Holy, holy, holy is God as noun and verb of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory. How's that go? Kadush, kadush, kadush. Yahweh spot. Kol hearts. I don't remember. And the post of the door moved at the voice of him that cried, and the house was filled with smoke. Then said I, Woe is me, for I am undone, because I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips, for mine eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts. Then flew one of the seraphim unto me, having a live coal in his hand, which he had taken with the tongs from off the altar, and he laid it upon my mouth, and said, Lo, this hath touched thy lips, and thine iniquity is taken away, and thy sin purged. Also, I heard the voice of God as noun and verb saying, Whom shall I send, and who will go for us? Then said I, Here am I, send me. And he said, Go, and tell this people, Hear indeed, but understand not, and see indeed, but perceive not. Make the heart of this people fat, make their ears heavy, and shut their eyes, lest they see with their eyes, and hear with their ears, and understand with their heart, and convert and be healed. And this reminds me of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints mythology regarding whom they call Lucifer, which is not the same thing as when the Bible kind of says it. Lucifer is Jesus 3 times, and it kind of makes the point that Daniel is, and so they moralize the title as some sort of evil, but they use this passage as a bounce-off point at the very least, you could say. Well, they claim their own prophetic authority for that, but then said I, Lord, how long? And he answered, Until the cities be wasted without inhabitant, and the houses without man, and the land be utterly desolate, and God as noun and verb have removed men far away, and there be a great forsaking in the midst of the land, but yet in it shall be a tenth, and it shall return, and it shall be eaten up as a tile tree, and as an oak, whose substance is in them, when they cast their leaves, so the holy seed shall be the substance thereof. Hear, O heavens, and give ear, O earth, for God as a noun and verb hath spoken. I have nourished and brought up children, and they have rebelled against me. The ox knoweth his owner, and the donkey his master's crib, but Yisrael doth not know, my people doth not consider. Ah, sinful nation, a people laden with iniquity, a seed of evildoers, children that are corrupters. They have forsaken God as a noun and verb. They have provoked the Holy One of Yisrael unto anger. They are gone away backward. They've become goyim, right? I don't know which word is being used, but why should ye be stricken any more? Will ye revolt more and more? The whole head is sick, and the whole heart faint, for the sole of the foot even unto the head. There is no soundness in it, but wounds and bruises and putrefying sores. They have not been enclosed, neither bound up, neither mollified with ointment. Your country is desolate, your cities are burned with fire, your land, strangers devour it in your presence. It is desolate, as overthrown by strangers, and the daughter of Tune is left as a cottage in a vineyard. So, really set apart, right? As a lodge in a garden of cucumbers, as a besieged city, except God is a noun and verb of hosts, had left unto us a very small remnant. We should have been as Sodom. We should have been like unto Amrah. Hear the words of God as a noun and verb. Ye rulers of Sodom, give ear unto the law of our God. Ye people of Gomorrah, to what purpose is the multitude of your sacrifices unto me, saith God as a noun and verb? I am full of the burnt offerings of rams, and the fat of fed beasts, and I delight not in the blood of bullocks, or of lambs, or of he-goats. When ye come to appear before me, who hath required this at your hand? To tread my courts, bring no more vain oblations. Incense is an abomination to me. The new moons and Sabbaths, the calling of assemblies, I cannot away with. It is iniquity, even the solemn meeting. Your new moons and your appointed feasts my soul hateth. They are trouble unto me, I am weary to bear them. And when ye spread forth your hands, I will hide mine eyes from you. Yea, when ye make your many prayers, I will not hear. Your hands are full of blood. See, like the incident that happened with the particular individuals with the charities, it wasn't like that these things weren't requirements. It was that the level of obedience was like, all this stuff is like nothing because of this. It's not that God requires all this. It's just like, you should have been a more decent person in the first place, right? Your hands are full of blood. Wash you, make you clean. Put away the evil of your doings before mine eyes. Cease to do evil, learn to do well. Seek judgment, relieve the oppressed. Judge the fatherless, plead for the widow. Come now and let us reason together, saith God as a noun and verb. Say, so it's not that prayer and a religious calendar or whatnot, but some festivities were, not prophetically brought into place. Though your sins be as scarlet, they shall be white as snow. Though they be red like crimson, they shall be as wool. If ye be willing and obedient, ye shall eat the good of the land. But if ye refuse and rebel, ye shall be devoured with the sword. For the mouth of God as a noun and verb hath spoken it. And it shall come to pass. And it shall come to pass in the last days that the mountain of God as a noun and verb's house shall be established in the top of the mountains. And it shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow unto it. Some people could literally consider that to be a prophecy about Mount Hira, because above the outside of Mecca and in that mount, and then all nations have been affected from that vision and the vision to follow, where the first 5 verses of Surah 96 were learned. And many people shall go and say, Come ye, and let us go up to the mountain of God as noun and verb, to the house of the God of Yaqub, and he will teach us of his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For out of Zion shall go forth the law, and the word of God as noun and verb from Jerusalem. And among the Israelites to come, there was definitely that, prophet after prophet to renew, and then the message was spread out depending on, different levels of, different amounts, remember, different purities of transmission, but, different purity levels, but. And he shall judge among the nations, and shall rebuke many people, and they shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war any more. Therefore thou hast forsaken thy people. Therefore thou hast forsaken thy people, the house of Jacob, because they be replenished from the east, and are soothsayers like the Palestiniim, and they please themselves in the children of strangers, and the land is also full of silver and gold. Neither is there any end of their treasures. Their land is also full of horses. Neither is there any end of their chariots. Their land is also full of idols. They worship the work of their own hands, that which their own fingers have made. And the mean man boweth down, and the great man humbleth himself. Therefore forgive them not. Enter into the rock. Enter into the rock, and hide thee in the dust. For fear of God is a noun and verb, and for the glory of his majesty. The lofty looks of man shall be humbled, and the haughtiness of men, men, we're talking about all humans here, right, shall be bowed down, and God as noun and verb alone shall be exalted in that day. For the day of God as a noun and verb of hosts shall be upon every one that is proud and lofty, and upon every one that is lifted up, and he shall be brought low, and upon all the cedars of Lebanon that are high and lifted up, and upon all the oaks of Bashan, and upon all the high mountains, and upon all the hills that are lifted up, and upon every high tower, and upon every fenced wall, and upon all the ships of Tarshish, and upon all the pleasant pitchers. And the loftiness of man shall be bowed down, and the haughtiness of men shall be made low, and God as a noun and verb alone shall be exalted in that day, and the idols he shall utterly abolish, and they shall go into the holes of the rocks, and into the caves of the earth, for the fear of God is a noun and verb, and for the glory of his majesty, when he ariseth to shake terribly the earth. In that day a man shall cast his idols of silver, and his idols of gold, which they made each one for himself to worship, to the moles and to the bats, to go into the clefts of the rocks, and into the tops of the ragged rocks, for fear of God as noun and verb, and for the glory of his majesty, when he ariseth to shake terribly the earth. Cease ye from man, whose breath is in his nostrils, for wherein is he to be accounted of? Because the daughters of Zion are haughty. Because the daughters of Zion are haughty. Say, people setting a bad example again, right? And walk with stretched forth necks and wanton eyes, walking and mincing as they go, and making a tinkling with their feet. Therefore God as noun and verb will smite with a scab the crown of the head of the daughters of Zion, and God as noun and verb will discover their secret parts. People who claim to be Christians or Jews in pornography, I guess. In that day, God as noun and verb will take away the bravery of their tinkling ornaments about their feet, and their cauls, and their round tires like the moon, the chains, and the bracelets, and the mufflers, the bonnets, and the ornaments of the legs, and the headbands, and the tablets and the earrings, the rings and the nose jewels, changeable suits of apparel, and the mantles and the wimples and the crisping pins, the glasses and the fine linen and the hoods and the veils. It shall, this, we see social media and even before that, the mere attention seeking, it's good not to be a part of it. Mere attention seeking. And it shall come to pass that instead of sweet smell there shall be a stink, and instead of a girdle, a rent, instead of a well set hair, baldness, and instead of a stomacher, a girding of sackcloth, and burning instead of beauty. Thy men shall fall by the sword, and thy mighty in the war. And her gates shall lament and mourn, and she, being desolate, shall sit upon the ground. And in that day 7 women shall take hold of one man, saying, We will eat our own bread and wear our own apparel, and only let us be called by thy name to take away our reproach. Now will I sing to my well-beloved. Now will I sing to my well-beloved a song of my beloved touching his vineyard. My well-beloved hath a vineyard and a very fruitful hill, and he fenced it, and gathered out the stones thereof, and planted it with the choicest vine, and built a tower in the midst of it, and also made a winepress therein. And he looked that it should bring forth grapes, and it brought forth wild grapes. Most variety of grapes are called muscadines, but yeah. And now, O inhabitants of Jerusalem, and men of Yehuda, judge, I pray you, betwixt me and my vineyard, what could have been done more to my vineyard, that I have not done in it. Wherefore, when I looked that it should bring forth grapes, brought it forth wild grapes. And now go to, I will tell you, what I will do to my vineyard. I will take away the hedge thereof, and it shall be eaten up, and break down the wall thereof, and it shall be trodden down. And I will lay it waste, and it shall not be pruned, nor digged, but there shall come up briars and thorns. I will also command the clouds, that they rain no rain upon it. For the vineyard of God is noun and verb of hosts, is the house of Yisrael, and the men of Yehuda, his pleasant plant. And and he looked for judgment, but behold, oppression, for righteousness, but behold, a cry. The people that walked in darkness, the people that walked in darkness have seen a great light. They that dwell in the land of the shadow of death, upon them hath the light shined. There's benefits for visiting a graveyard, right? Thou hast multiplied the nation, increased the joy before thee, according to the joy in harvest. And as men rejoice when they divide the spoil, for thou hast broken the yoke of his burden, and the staff of his shoulder, the rod of his oppressor, as in the day of Midian. For every battle of the warrior is with confused noise, and the garments rolled in blood. But this shall be with burning and fuel of fire. For unto us a child is born, and unto us is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. Well, see, people saying something doesn't mean it's true. But, exaggerating the station. There's been a lot of this happening with political figures for a long time. Of the increase of his government and peace, there shall be no end upon the throne of Dawood and upon his kingdom, to order it and to establish it with judgment and with justice from henceforth even forever. The zeal of God as noun and verb of hosts will perform this. Well, we see also that other people and other beings are being the means of God's zeal being established on earth. So again, we don't have to believe in an incarnation of God to take this passage seriously. The Lord said a word. God as noun and verb sent a word unto Yaqub, and it hath lightened upon Yishral. And all the people know, even Ephraim and the inhabitant of Samaria, that say in the pride and stoutness of heart, the bricks are fallen down, but we will build with hewn stones. The sycamores are cut down, but we will change them into cedars. Therefore God as noun and verb shall set up the adversaries of Rezin against him, and join his enemies together, the Syrians before and the Palestinians behind, and they shall devour Yishral with open mouth. For all this his anger is not turned away, but his hand is outstretched still. For the people turneth not unto him that smiteth them, neither do they seek God as a noun and verb of hosts. Therefore God as noun and verb will cut off from Yishral head and tail, branch and rush, in one day. The ancient and honorable, he is the head, and the prophet that teacheth lies, he is the tail. There's different kinds of prophets, right? For the leaders of this people cause them to err, and they that are led of them are destroyed.